All right. My name is Laurel, and I am the grants manager here at Utah Arts and Museums, and I am joined by 5 other colleagues who I'd like to have introduce themselves. We are recording this so that we can put this on our website. So if Linda or Chelsea, if you don't want to have your video on our website, you are welcome to turn your video off. In fact, I can pause and restart. Let me do that. I'll figure that piece out. We're glad that you are here with us and interested in this individual artist career development opportunity grant. We are really grateful to be able to offer this. And I'll just I'll turn the mic to Peter. We'll do Peter. I'll just go on my screen. Peter, Jason, Alyssa, Ian, and Hannah. If you'll just introduce yourselves quickly and share what you do for arts and museums.
Hi, thanks, Laurel. Yeah, as she mentioned, I'm Peter Pei. I'm the visual arts coordinator for the division.
Hi there, I'm Jason Bocut. I am the Community Programs and Performing Arts Manager for Utah Arts and Museums.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Hickman Grove, and I manage communications and the literary arts program for the Division of Arts and Museums.
And I'm Ian Halligan, and I oversee the folk arts program.
And I'm Hannah Barrett. I'm the public art coordinator.
Thank you, team. I'm really happy to have this wonderful team here with us to talk about the various pieces. A lot of what we will do today is just have an open question and answer, but we thought we would start by kind of giving a broad overview of the grant and what the grant is intended to do and what it is not intended to do, and then some of the questions that we've already been receiving. We've been offering this grant for, I believe, 3 years now, and we are really glad that we have this as a resource for the state. It tends to be a pretty competitive grant. The last couple of years, we've had probably twice as many applications as we've been able to fund. This grant is intended to provide career development opportunities, and that looks like a number of different things. What it doesn't look like is a specific project. So we are not funding a specific activity, but we are funding a variety of things that might make you as an artist a stronger, better artist. This is for individuals, not for groups. And so you'll see in the application a number of times where you get to verify that that's what you're applying for. So where we might see a kind of a blend with this, and maybe Jason will talk about this, is where, say, a band is interested in producing something. It's really not for a band. It is really for an individual, and maybe a couple of different members of a band could apply for different pieces of an activity. Team, would you like to share anything else with relationship to the concept of what this is supposed to do, career development, career opportunities?
I think I'd just emphasize again what Laurel just said, because we see this again and again in these applications. This is for you as an individual. And we see people come in and like...
Oh, Jason, you just muted yourself accidentally. Probably hit the space bar.
We can see something like a band coming in with a bunch of individual applications, but you can clearly see it is for the band's work. And that is one of those red flags which will keep it from getting funded. It really has to be about you as an individual, artist.
And I keep looking to my right, which is where I have an additional screen. I think I'm going to actually share my screen and share with you specifically what our guidelines are. And let me clear off one piece of that, and then I'll share this. So these are our guidelines. These are online, and we really try and provide a lot of information to you as applicants within these guidelines. So if you, I'm guessing since you're all here, you have all done a really good job of finding the guidelines. If you haven't spent time in them, I know they're long and there's a lot there, but we'll go through kind of how to use these guidelines. We use these as a tool that that we very specifically try and provide a lot of information to you here. And we also ask the grant reviewers to use this as their tool so that so that we're all playing from the same playbook, I guess would be the phrasing I would use. So this is for any kind of individual artist, and we've tried to articulate a good variety of individual artist disciplines. And additionally, as we indicated, our team is here, and we all try to be available for any kinds of questions that you have. My role is I'm the grants manager here, and so if you hit a technical problem, then reach out to me. But if you have a question about what you are looking to apply for, please reach out to one of my coworkers. So we ask you in the very first part of the application to actually certify that you are a Utah citizen, or a person who lives in Utah as your primary residence, that you are practicing as and that you have a sustained commitment to your work. And Ian will share a little bit more about how folk arts, we look at folk arts slightly differently and with a little bit more open lens. We ask that you are 21 years or older and that you have the ability to get paid in the state with with a social security number or an ITIN or some other type of documentation that allows us to pay you. We are not this year paying any organizations, so we aren't paying an LLC, and we're not paying business EINs. This is an individual artist opportunity, and we are restricting it to paying individuals, not any version of a corporation. We don't require any kind of a cash match, and we will fund anywhere between 500 and 1,500. Again, I'd like maybe one of my good friends who has run this with me for a while to talk about how we think about batching, and maybe Jason, this is one that you'd be willing to take, batching a bunch of ideas together in order to make that $1,500 request.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We know you want to get to that $1,500 marker to get as much support as you can. But I think that sometimes, and Laurel, please stop me if I'm off base here, what that can look like to a panel is that you're trying to do many, you're just trying to reach to get to the highest number. If you can find something that is like an individual ask, like a clear, this is the thing I want. Like if you're going to do a recording, make sure everything is just connected to that recording. Like I need a sound engineer, I need equipment. You don't want to just throw in, and I also want to go to this conference, because it ends up looking kind of like I wouldn't say a red flag, but it doesn't look good to a panelist. Laurel, does that capture
I think
what you're
so.
talking about?
Alyssa, you've been doing this for a couple of years with us. Would you add anything to that at all?
No, not really. I mean, Jason seems to have really covered it. Things that you're asking for should relate to one project.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we also list what this grant can fund, and I'm going to leave this for you to read through. I do want to reiterate, though, that this is not for the specific creation of a piece of work. That is not what we're funding, and we've made that decision quite intentionally. We want to help develop your career, but we are not in terms of how we are looking at these applications. We are not wanting to put our panel in the decision mode of choosing a specific project that needs to be funded. So read through this list carefully of what this can fund and what we are willing to fund, and steer clear of asking for a specific project. We do steer clear of funding specific academic program. So if you are in an academic, you're getting your master's in fine art, for example, this grant, hold off on this grant and apply for it in a year. That's not what this is for. And I think we've been over the rest of it. Actually, let me mention we won't fund food, drink, or alcohol. And this is an important one. This includes we won't fund per diem for food, drink, or alcohol related to grant travel. So that is something this particular grant will not fund. And if you include that, then we will have to remove that from your request. And we've also had to make the decision that we will not fund any international travel. So we will not send you out of the US. That was a hard decision for us to make. We won't fund fiscal sponsors. All artists must go directly to the applicant artist. And this is another really important one. We will not fund anything that was purchased prior to your application award. So timing on this, it's sort of a narrow window, and we apologize for that. We're hoping to have a little broader window next year, but at this point we will be giving grant awards in January, and you'll have until the end of June to spend them, and that is an important note. Let's see. Trying to decide if there's anything else we want to dig into in this. There are some disciplines that we will not fund, so we've tried to give a pretty good general list, but if you see yourself in the disciplines that we cannot fund, don't spend your time applying. There are things that fall outside of the purview of our agency. So we can't fund anything that occurs prior to January 15th. So let's say your application is to purchase a camera, and you have applied and you feel really good about your application, and you go ahead and the camera's on sale on Black Friday, you decide to go ahead and purchase it. We won't refund you for that. We won't pay for that. That would mean that your grant would become ineligible. So wait until January 15th. The application closes October 20th. I can't believe we are already in October. It's coming fast. And as soon as our board meets, then we take all of our recommendations to our governing board, and they approve the grant application, and then we communicate with you via email. Okay, I am going to now stop sharing this screen for 1 minute, and I'm going to pull up the application itself. And while I'm doing that, would anybody like to add anything to what I've shared so far? All right, well, in lieu of that, I've got this open now. I'm logging in as if I'm applying, and we've divided this up. Jason's going to take the first half of the application, and Peter's going to take the second half of the application. So I'm going to apply as if I am applying, and so I've signed in, I've got my registration, I'm going to start this application. And the first page that I open up has already caused some confusion for some people who are applying. This is just basically like a cover page. Don't get too caught up about what the title is or what the description is. Those are both short. I am just going to put test in all these. But this is really not your application. This is really just a cover page. So you can put in basically what it is you're applying for, just a very short description. But this is really just kind of a transmittal kind of piece. When we get to the next page, that's where the application lies, and that's what the reviewers will be looking at. So it begins with an attestation. We've talked about all of these pieces already. I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to move on to, I've got to get through the general information. We'll get through that. And I'm going to skip this. I think it will let me skip. Okay. Here we go. Jason, I'll hand it to you.
So this is where you get into the meat of the application. So these are where all of the questions that you're going to need to spend some time answering. So, and each of these questions are on the guidelines, and we have kind of a cheat sheet on the guidelines of what we're looking for when we ask these questions. So the first is summarize what you're requesting. That is what you are going to want to do with this funding. And I want to point out that we have a character minimum and maximum. So we have found that in our system, you can indeed put less than 500 characters, but you cannot put more than 500. But we put a suggestion
More than
in,
2,000.
I'm sorry, 2,000. We put a suggestion in of not doing anything less than 500 characters. It really is clear here whether you're going to get funded or someone else will get funded. And a really minimal answer to this question is an easy one to say, like, well, they don't seem to need it as much as someone else or want it as much as someone else. So really be careful about answering this question fully. You have to be completed. Your project has to be completed, paid for, and finished by June 30th. That's the end of our fiscal year. So you will be sending receipts to us, and they need to show, like Laurel said, that they don't begin until after the point that we've started this, but they must be completed by June 30th. Anything outside of that, we will not be able to pay for. Clearly list and explain your costs. So this is, again, for us to understand, this should reflect back to your narrative on what you're wanting to do with this project. But please put in all of your costs here that are connected to this application. You don't have to write a big novel here. Just list them out so it's really clear for our panel reviewers when they're going through this. It's really clear what you're asking for. And then the final one is optional. Put in bids. It's good for us to see that you're asking for something that is reasonable in that field. If you're looking to have someone do a recording of you and they have a really high cost there, it's going to be a red flag if we're not seeing that that is a comparative cost to the field. So Laurel, hopefully that has answered that
That is
stuff.
great. The size of a file maximum of 25 megabytes. And if you have a really long file name, like this is a really great picture of all the things I've ever done. If that's your file name, it will probably not load. It's about 30 characters long, that the file size, the file name. It's an odd little quirk that we found, but just keep your naming on the shorter side. All right, Peter. Let's talk
Great.
about the required documentation.
Thanks, Laurel. First, I wanted to point out there's a question in the chat about considering Puerto Rico international for conferences.
That I would appreciate if you would email me directly about that, alder@utah.gov, and I can drop that my email in the chat. The state does have some restrictions on contiguous states, and in fact, I was just trying to go to Puerto Rico myself for a conference, and it's not happening for me. So let me check with our attorney on that. A lot of what we are looking at is how the state is reviewing travel. So if you'll email me directly, I will get an answer for you and be able to answer it offline.
Great. Thank you, Laurel. Yeah, I thought it probably was a deeper answer than what I was thinking. So moving on to the required documentation section. So something to just think about as you're applying for this is that what you're trying to do is put your best foot forward as representing yourself as an established artist who is regularly working in whatever genre it is you're working in. So for artist statements, you want to upload a current artist statement as a PDF. And as an alternative for folk artists, you can upload a letter of support. If you have questions about that specifically, I would reach out to Ian, who is our folk arts coordinator and on this call as well.
Ian, do you
And
want to
then-
add anything about that? Sorry, Peter.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Ian, would you like to add to go a little deeper on that at all?
Yeah, of course. Just to kind of add on to that, when we think of a letter of support here, especially for folk artists, when you're applying under this category, it should be considered someone that can kind of speak to your either experience or dedication wanting to learn the art form or practice the art form. So this can be someone that's from the community that you share. This can be a colleague or anyone that can really speak for your abilities. And it's really just kind of providing another kind of certification or highlight of your abilities and kind of adding on to your application.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ian. I'm going to drop a link to a PDF that's in our art ops section of our website. There's some professional development resources there about how to write about your work or artist statements, etc. But what are we looking for in an artist statement? It should be brief-ish, between 250 and 500 words. Is there a maximum on that? Well, I don't
We
think there is.
don't have an official maximum on that.
But I would aim for that 250 to 500 words because you should be able to sort of demonstrate what it is you do within that amount of wordage. The statement should be written in the first person, describing your artistic practice, inspirations, and aspirations. The next thing you want to upload is a CV or resume. And what we're looking for a CV or resume is sort of a list of your detailed accomplishments working as an artist in your discipline. So if applicable, you should list exhibitions, shows, publications, award, education experience or teaching experience, or any other accomplishments that are related to your endeavors as an artist. I'm also going to drop into the chat a link to the College Art Association's guidelines for visual arts CV. But of course, if you're a musician or a writer, you could look at that as a kind of a general guideline and adjust the categories as you need. And then for work samples, we ask that you provide 3 samples of your artistic work, upload the samples that have been produced, upload samples that have been produced in the past 5 years. So we are looking for work that is more up to date, recent, because we are looking to fund current working artists. You want to upload samples that really demonstrate your skills as an artist. Performing a visual artist, you can provide a PDF document with links to websites, or you may upload up to 3 digital files of your representative artwork. For literary artists, you can provide 3 literary samples, like poems, essays, book chapters, or short stories, etc.
And then we sign it. And it just saying that you understand all these things. If you try and submit this, so right there, the little red lines saying that something that you haven't filled something out. You can see I've skipped over everything here. Most of these are required. There are just a couple that are optional, and it will kick you out, or it will keep you from submitting until you have completed and filled everything out. I think that runs through. I'm going to just make sure that, let me see, did that change? Yeah, it did change. Okay, so both Peter and Jason acknowledge that in the guidelines, we do go deeper. We try and say some of the things that they have just said in the guidelines. So again, we really try and provide these as your resource. So if you have questions, start with the guidelines and then go elsewhere. I think that wraps up kind of the run of what we want to share. If you have questions, you can either put them in the chat or you could just raise your hand. I'm seeing one question about size for images. All of the uploads are 25 megabytes is the maximum. And but you can, if you have a place where you have, if you exceed that size and you want to send us to look at an external documentation, say you've got a YouTube channel or something, you can upload a document that just has that YouTube channel linked. And if you have, say, a long piece of music and you want us to listen to a certain segment of that piece of music, you could just indicate, please see this location and watch from minute 3:11 to minute 9:15 in that section. So that's, let's see, I'm just trying to scroll back through a couple of questions. Do we provide receipts for expenses or as a lump sum issued based on what is approved? We'll work with you. If you have an itemized receipt, that would be preferable, but we will certainly, we actually try really hard to work with you and make this not onerous. Other questions? All of our contact information is available on the guidelines, and you are welcome to reach out to us. We really try to respond within a day or two of, usually within the day, but we try and get back with you as quickly as possible. And you're welcome to email, for example, me and whichever discipline specialist you want to contact, and we'll try and coordinate and get answers back to you as quickly as we can.
Laura, Linda has a good question in the chat. You can see that.
Oh, thank you. If I want to apply for framing and printing of photographs, do I need to be accepted into an arts exhibit first? Peter or Hannah, do you want to take this?
I mean, I think it could be helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that having your work professionally prepared is a professional development step. I would just think about that in the way that you describe it. How will you use the work once it's printed and framed as a professional development tool? Like, how is that going to take your career to the next stage in advancement? So I would think about that as far as when you write your narrative of the grant, how doing that, how printing and framing will help you further your career.
These are good questions. Thank you for asking them. Okay. If there are no further questions, I will post a copy of this recording on our website, and we'll be back here this evening at 6. If you have any of your colleagues if we're not able to make it at noon, they are welcome to join us this evening, and we are here and ready to answer more questions and help you out. We want you to be successful, and we know this is a competitive grant. Thank you for joining us. Have a lovely day.